For more than a decade, the rhythm of buying a new iPhone has felt almost seasonal. Every September, without fail, Apple pulls back the curtain on a fresh lineup, and shoppers walk into stores already knowing the drill. Pick the regular model if you want something reliable and affordable, or stretch your budget for the Pro if you want the best cameras and the fastest chip. That rhythm has held steady for so long that most people don't even think about it anymore. It's simply how iPhones work. But according to a growing wave of leaks and supply chain reports, that decade-long pattern is about to break in a way nobody saw coming. And the phone at the center of the shakeup is the one everyone assumed would stay exactly the same. If you were planning to walk into an Apple store this coming September and pick up the standard, everyday iPhone, you're going to be met with a surprise. That specific device reportedly won't be there. Instead, the September stage is being reserved entirely for the high end of the lineup, the Pro models, and for the first time, a brand new foldable iPhone. The phone that the vast majority of everyday customers actually buy. The one that isn't chasing headlines but simply needs to work well every single day, will be conspicuously missing from the shelf. At first, that sounds like nothing but bad news. Nobody enjoys waiting longer for something they were ready to buy right now. But once you start pulling apart why Apple is reportedly doing this, the decision starts to look less like a delay and more like a complete rework of how the company thinks about its product calendar. This isn't being framed as a delay caused by manufacturing setbacks or component shortages. It's being described as a deliberate, calculated shift in overall strategy. Rather than cramming a modest, incremental refresh into an event that already has 3 or 4 other devices fighting for attention, Apple is reportedly giving the standard phone its own dedicated launch window in early 2027. That extra runway means engineering and manufacturing teams get real time to build a phone that feels like a genuine leap forward rather than a phone assembled from whatever components were left over after the Pro models got first pick. Instead of inheriting last year's chip or a camera system that's a generation behind, the entry-level iPhone is reportedly being treated as its own flagship moment, with features that meaningfully close the gap between the base model and the far more expensive Pro tier. To understand why this matters so much, it helps to look at how Apple's fall keynote has actually functioned over the last several years. When 4 or 5 devices launch on the same night, attention naturally gravitates toward the most expensive, most feature-packed hardware. Tech reviewers, journalists, and YouTube channels spend nearly all their airtime dissecting the newest camera system or the fastest processor, and the base model quietly becomes an afterthought. The phone bought mostly by people who just wanted something that worked without paying a premium. By splitting the release calendar in two, Apple appears to be rewriting that dynamic entirely. The high-end devices keep their traditional autumn spotlight, while the standard phone gets an entire spring event built around it. That alone gives everyday buyers a real reason to pay attention to a release that used to fly under the radar, especially because the phone arriving in early 2027 is reportedly designed to feel genuinely premium from the moment you pick it up. The front of the device is said to be getting its most significant redesign in years. For a long time, the standard iPhone was stuck using older display technology, while the Pro models moved ahead with sleeker designs and smaller cutouts. Leaks suggest that gap is finally closing. Engineers are reportedly working to shrink the visible cutout on the display by relocating key security and sensor components underneath the glass itself. Early design concepts point toward a front panel with noticeably more usable screen space, with the cutout reduced down to a small, neat placement tucked into one corner rather than stretching across the middle of the display. The result is a wider, more immersive view for video, gaming, and everyday navigation. A front face that's reportedly closer to what you'd expect from the most expensive phones on the market rather than the base model. Shrinking that cutout doesn't mean sacrificing any of the clever software tricks people have grown used to. The dynamic alert system that expands and contracts around the display's cutout to show notifications, music controls, timers, and turn-by-turn directions is expected to remain fully intact. What changes is the physical footprint it has to work around. When there's nothing happening, the top of the screen stays clean and unobtrusive. When something does arrive, the software still smoothly animates across the display before tucking itself away again. Combining under-display hardware with that kind of responsive software is what gives the front of the phone its modern, minimalist look, and it's genuinely difficult to manufacture at this scale. Placing sensors beneath an active display layer requires extremely tight manufacturing tolerances so that light can pass through cleanly without degrading the picture underneath. In past years, this kind of engineering was reserved almost exclusively for the priciest devices because it was simply too costly to produce at the volume a standard iPhone needs. Giving the base model those extra months before launch reportedly gives suppliers the runway to refine yield rates, which helps avoid shortages and keeps retail pricing from spiraling upward. Design isn't only about the screen, though. Color and visual identity matter just as much to how a phone actually sells. Over the past few product cycles, Apple's premium lineup has leaned heavily into muted, corporate-friendly finishes. Dark grays, dull silvers, and soft, understated pastels that appeal to professional buyers who want something that blends in. But everyday phone buyers, the people picking up the standard model, tend to want something with more personality.